Boom. What's up, freaks, friends, humans, lunatics, upright bipedal Homo sapiens? How are you? I trust and hope that you're having a wonderful weekend morning. Sunday is such a great day. Historically, Sunday has been the day of church fellowship. Individuals across the world gather together to celebrate their varying faiths on Sunday. Some of them do it on Saturday. Others do it during the week. Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting how that occurs across the country? That unanimously, almost in some towns, it's like they roll up their sidewalks on Sundays. In other towns, it's a blip on the map. It's just another day. You go to Denver, Sunday is just another day. But in small little suburbs and towns across Colorado, it's vastly different. It's interesting. It's very interesting. So, getting back to the subject at hand here, going into yourself, going in, who, me? That's the graphic for this image, for this sound, for this audio. Who, me? Who, me? Me? What am I? So I did some searching this past week about that particular phrase, who am I? Or I am. And there was 5 or 6 different things that came up. One of them was the Christian reference. In the Christian Bible, there's a reference to the God of the Old Testament saying, I am. And then later in the New Testament, in that same scripture, the person and character of Jesus says the same thing, thus referring that he is the same God from that other book, right? Then there was also references from Buddhism about the nature of self and the discussion of who am I, or that I don't exist outside of my surroundings, right? There's such deep history with that phrase and the process of digging into oneself. And there's an entire industry built on it. Mindfulness. I mean, you can be a mindfulness coach now. Like, you can make money being a mindfulness coach. Do you believe that? That's crazy to me. But you can actually take people's money that they work for throughout the week and then teach them how to become mindful, right? I mean, I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm saying, like, there's people who do this. There are people who make money off of the mind. And if, by the way, pause, you hear this crappy sound in my nose? Yeah, that's just the remnants of a head cold. It's going away, though, I promise. Regardless, back to the point at hand. Going into oneself, it's not as trippy as it seems. And the reason I know that is because there's clinically proven trials from the VA, like double-blind research studies, because that's the only thing the stupid VA is going to use, are double-blind studies. Where's the facts? Where's the data? They need the data. They're not going to do it if it's not data proved. Despite the fact that hundreds of thousands of veterans every single day go to the VA and tell them this and this and this work, they're like, well, we need the data. What about that data? Okay, regardless. The VA is really, really big on double-blind studies. Double-blind studies have proven that mindfulness practices help the veteran with PTSD. It's been proven. So it's not just a bunch of phooey. It's not just a bunch of like head stuff. It's not just philosophy either. Because a lot of people believe, well, that's an interesting philosophy. They're like, well, yeah, that's an interesting idea. Well, it's not just an idea, folks. I mean, that's sort of a really important thing to mention. That going into your head space is not a new thing at all. Not only is it not a new thing, it's a clinically proven thing to help you. But that's scary as hell. Let me tell you something, that's scary. When you ask somebody what makes you happiest in life, and if you know me and you've spent any time around me, I ask this question incessantly. I'm constantly asking this question of people, of my friends, of my family, of my neighbors. I'll be at the sauna and I'll meet a stranger and we'll have a brief chat about whatever. I'm like, what makes you happiest in life, Dave? What? I don't know, man. I haven't really thought about it. And then they blow me off. But a lot of folks are really taken off guard when you ask them what makes them happiest in life, because what it requires is digging into your own head for just a quick second about joy. And if you live a life of depression or you're marked with anxiety, joy is something that might be foreign to you. It might be contrived. You might have never really, truly experienced joy. So when you ask somebody what makes you happiest in life, that might be a very, very scary question. Because they're going to have to go digging into their headspace just for a little bit to try to answer that question. And that's spooky, man. That can be really scary. Folks in there might not be, they might not be ready for that. So starting simple, start slow. Every single day, let me challenge you. Every single day, for a very brief and short period of time, I want to encourage you to sit down, to close your eyes, and observe your thoughts. Now, what does that look like? It simply means do not attempt to alter your thoughts. Do not attempt to think about your thoughts. Did you hear that? Don't think about your thoughts. Just see them. See that they're there. And if they move along, they move along. If they don't, perhaps there's a reason they don't move along. Perhaps there's a reason that every single time you close your eyes, every single time you stop and pause, every single time you give your brain a break, it goes right to one thing or one subject or one traumatic event. There's a reason it does that, folks. There's a reason your brain consistently and constantly is begging you to pay attention to this thing. There's a reason. There's a mechanism occurring. There is a scientific process that's been proven that is happening right now. At that moment where you go into yourself and find fear, at that moment, your brain is sending you a gigantic signal. That signal is this: pay attention. Listen for a second. Watch this. That's in essence what your brain is trying to say, but it's scary as hell. It's terrifying because it's unknown. Or even worse than unknown is known. Like if you know the trauma that you might feel like you're going to re-experience is going to happen again when you go to that thought, it may keep you from wanting to go to that thought. But what I'm trying to show is that a lot of times these stuck points, these other issues that are seemingly unrelated suddenly become totally mitigated when you give attention to what your brain is trying to constantly show you. So when you close your eyes and you sit down and you pause for a moment and you observe your thoughts, just giving your body time to catch up with your mind, or your mind time to catch up with your body. And you're just looking and listening. You're not trying to attempt to change. You're not trying to adjust. You're not trying to alter. You're not trying to manufacture. You're not trying to make the change. You're just trying to listen. You're just trying to see. Why? Because there's something in there. There's someone in there. And getting into that headspace, getting into that place of what's happening in my brain, it can bring a peace and a calm. Because a lot of times when you sit down and you ask yourself what makes you happiest in life, when you sit down and you think, what is it that I really, really find joy in? How do I get joy? That forces you to dig in. And then once you dig in, you start to see things. Maybe you start to see things that scare you. You start to see things that confuse you. Or even worse, maybe sometimes some people are so numbed to their own feelings that it's like, well, there's nothing there. It's nothing. I don't really have anything. There's nothing. I'm not really experienced. There's nothing there. I don't know. It's just nothing. Okay, you need to sit longer. You need to just sit longer. You know, there's Ed Bassmaster's got, well, would you just look at it? He's got this little joke. But that's what you got to do. You got to sit, you got to pause, and you just got to look at it. Would you just look at it? That's what he does. You sit down for just a quick second, you take a peek, you look, you listen, you observe, and then you come away with a different perspective. Because now it's like, oh man, you know, that crazy racing heart and palpitations and cold sweats that I get every time I go to try to meditate, turns out, yeah, there was this thing that happened back in blah 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 time, and every time I think about it, it just used to give me problems. But now, every time I go to meditation, it's there, but it moves along. And now other thoughts take its place. How does that make any sense? Does that seem like hypothetical, philosophical garbage? It's not. And the reason I say it's not is this. Two things. First thing, anecdotal evidence is proven it. But most importantly, above and beyond that, and remember, the gold standard is the VA, right? The gold standard is the VA. So the VA said, this is a clinically proven, double-blind study, proven thing that works. Mindfulness. It works against anxiety, PTSD, depression, sleeplessness. All sorts of things are related to this. And then on top of that, again, we have the anecdotal evidence that is even more surmountable against the idea that this is just a philosophical game. You're just playing tricks on your own mind. This is just a pretend thing you're doing. Congratulations for you doing the pretend thing that works, right? A lot of people look at mindfulness. Okay, I'm going to take a step out here, and I hope I don't offend anybody. Okay? But it is completely known that to some portions of the earth, okay, religion or theology is considered fictitious, right? It's reasonable to know that those humans that have that opinion exist. And there are other groups of people who believe that mindfulness, as it's practiced, known, and defined, is equally as fictitious in their mind. Now that's frustrating, right? Because one takes faith. It takes faith to be a Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim. It takes a faith because you have to believe in something that, in essence, it's much less tangible than what you would normally experience in life, right? So it takes a faith and a belief, right? And some would say it takes a divine faith, right? And it's tough. It can be a challenge, and et cetera. I'm not going to have that discussion right now yet. But mindfulness doesn't take faith. It doesn't take a pretending in something in any way capacity. It's real. It's absolutely tangibly real. I promise it's real. Ask yourself the question quite simply, what makes me happiest in life? What makes me happiest in life? And then you sit down and you close your eyes, if you feel comfortable with that, and you just observe the thoughts as they move by. And many people will tell you to focus on your breathing while doing this. Many people will tell you to focus on there's people I know who have said, light a candle in a dimly lit room and then put the candle across the room. And then allow your thoughts or your mind, your eye and your thoughts to focus on that candle while simultaneously observing the thoughts as they move by. That's what I've heard people say. But you know what? That's complicated. That gets weird. What? We just sit down. And like Ed Bassmaster said, would you just look at it? Just look at it. Look at the thoughts. Observe them. Why? Why is it valuable to observe? Because there is a mechanism occurring in our brain that we need to see in order to ensure that we do not neglect what needs taken care of, i.e. trauma. Trauma. Now, a lot of folks will run from that word maybe. I've never really experienced trauma. My dad just hit me in the face for 14 years. I'm joking. But there's people who I know who have said that. I don't really experience trauma, but my husband beats me every other day. It's like, what are you saying? Do you hear yourself? Well, no, it's not really that bad. He just hits me in the ear. It's not like I need it. But you know that there's people who have made these very same arguments and claims. I just drink 5 to 10 times a week. It's, I'm only blackout drunk once a day. It's not that big of a deal. Do you see how they've rationalized it? But you know who else does that? Criminals. It's not like I beat up a woman. It's not like I raped a kid. It's not like I, stole somebody's food money. It's not. You hear how they justify and justify and justify. And they are attempting constantly, consistently to set themselves right. Why? The only persons who want to set themselves right are persons who feel out of place. Ooh. They feel something is not aligned correctly. There is something out of sync here. There's something not right. There's something not clicking. There's something just not happening here. Hint, hint, hint. You ever play Zelda? Hey, listen. Remember that? If you haven't, you need to go right now, pause this podcast, and Google Zelda, Hey Listen on YouTube and have a joyous time listening. Okay. I digress. I digress for a very good reason. Because I'm going to go do some training with my friends. I'm going to go sit in the sauna. Do some working out, do some mindfulness practices, some prayer perhaps. Get in contact with what's in there, see what's up, see what's happening, see how it feels, etc., etc. I'm going to visit this again. We're going to talk about this very same subject, who, me, part 2. But if you are having anxiety, if you are experiencing sleeplessness, if you find yourself constantly or perhaps at times when it's inconvenient having racing thoughts, let me encourage you to step it up a bit. Let me encourage you, please, to no longer allow yourself to neglect what needs to happen. Pay attention to your mind. Ignore for a moment your heart and its emotions. If you're wanting to mute something, mute your heart for just a moment, because it's a liar, it's a deceiver. It'll run this, it'll run that. I'm not saying it doesn't have things to say at times, but it will connive and lie to get its way. And its way is often not the best or most advantageous course for someone's person to follow. But what you can do pretty easily is listen to your mind. Listen, observe, see, think. Some would call it your still small voice. Some would call it the still small voice. Some would say the Holy Spirit's talking to you. Some would say my mind is speaking. Some, I don't know, whatever particular label you need to put on it for your particular viewpoint. But what you do need to do is just quite literally sit down for a second on your butt, close your eyes, and see what happens. And do it commonly enough, or actively enough, or regularly enough that your mind knows, oh, this is the sit down time. This is the time to sit and not move. Or even better, it's almost as if your body anticipates. In fact, I'm going to say this. Google this is true. Your body does anticipate things. When an addict is about to shoot heroin into his body, there is anticipation, and that anticipation releases dopamine. It's proven sometimes that some heroin addicts get higher in the process of getting the dope than they do in banging it into their arm. That's an actual fact, and you can Google that. There is also a very, very chemical, scientific activity occurring when that happens. Not some hooky head space takes faith kind of idea, okay? It's real. There's chemicals occurring. So what happens is when your body makes a breakthrough in this moment of calmness, suddenly it sees the reward. And I'm snapping my fingers because it's like your mind's picking up on a tempo. It knows. I'm gonna get better now. Okay, so your mind, it picks it up. It knows. And then it expects it. And then when you don't do it, you're like, oh, I'm feeling low. I need to go sit down for a while and think about my thoughts. I need to see what's in there for a sec. Because, man, it's valuable. I am feeling better despite how I sound. I have been sick for the last 7 days because of a nasty chest congestion flu thing. My family has been impacted greatly by it. And the one thing we've all been able to do is like, you know what, we're sick. Let's do jiu-jitsu together because we couldn't go to the dojo. We couldn't get out. But now I'm out. I'm broken free of the chains of my sickness. And I'm going to the basement brawlers Huff House to do some jiu-jitsu, no-gi, and sit in the sauna, hang out with my friends. And there's value in that, by the way. There's value in touching other human beings who don't have ill intention towards you. When's the last time you, as a grown adult, sat down and actually interacted with another person and then made physical contact? Like I remember when I was growing up in the church I grew up in, men would hold hands with men while they were doing difficult tasks. And it was something I remember from my youth, that there's value in that. And today, as an adult, I do jiu-jitsu. I grab a hold of these grown men and they choke me and try to hit me, and it's fun. But there's something gentle about it because we're friends. We're not enemies. We're allies. So we're actually trying to make each other get better. It's such a peculiar thing, and I talk about it all the time. And if you want more information about it, send me a message. Oh yeah, that reminds me. I'm not really on Facebook a whole bunch. The fact that you're hearing this is a result of an intentional choice. I downloaded the app. I'm doing the podcast. When I'm finished with this, I'm going to delete the app off of my device. Why? Because I find it to be very, very distracting, having the applications on my device. But sometimes it's nice to have them there, particularly moments like this, where I want to sit, have a conversation with my friends, and it's much more convenient to reach out to people this way. But let me encourage you to try this. Download the app called Offline, Offline. I don't have any paid endorsements or anything, but download the app Offline, and then download the app Headspace, Headspace. And I believe my friend Dennis Witham has, is that how you say your name? No, Withun. Witthun. That's it. My buddy Dennis, he suggested Headspace on this, or mindfulness app available that I use. Operator Headspace can be very useful in knowing who you are and what you want. I appreciate your words, Dennis. Hey, listen, he's right. Go download the apps that I just referred to, Offline and Headspace, and then delete Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Delete these apps from your devices. You can download them again. Calm down. Save your passwords. Don't freak out, okay? You're an adult. You delete the apps, and then when you know you want to use them, you need to use them, you have to go through a step and a process to do it. Or just wait until you get home and use your desktop. And if you don't have a desktop and your mobile app is the only way, then you need to tell your friends to start to text you. Yeah, I know it's inconvenient, but there's something good about being disconnected for a while. Something very good. Okay? You guys are beautiful. You're amazing. Pursue what you're pursuing, unless it's deleterious for your good health, and don't do it anymore. If you find something in your life that you know you shouldn't do and you can't stop doing it, call me. Please send me an email, timothy.m.locklear@gmail.com. timothylocklear.com is also another way you can get a hold of me. Boris the Service Dog on Facebook and Instagram. Veterans for Natural Rights. Check it out. We're an organization that exists to help veterans get access to resources, data, communication, medications that the VA won't provide, that are completely legal, that veterans should have access to ashwagandha and holy basil, to kava kava, to things that completely 100% have been proven to help the veteran with PTSD, but yet the VA only prescribes the harmful pharmaceuticals. So that's one of the things we do. Legislation is really important to Veterans for Natural Rights, as it should be to most humans, particularly legislation that is advantageous to the veteran. So we advocate for them at the White House, at the local level, at the state level, and there are organizations that are small, little, tiny ideas of the exact same concept as Veterans for Natural Rights. There's one here in Omaha. There's one in Denver. There's 3 in Texas. There are several in Washington. There's all over the place. And as we continue to grow, more and more individuals will grab onto the idea that this is our responsibility, veterans. As American citizens who have served our country in the way that we have a privilege and a right to ensure the safety of our fellow compatriots, of the individuals with whom we have had the pleasure of serving with. We need to make sure they're taken care of. And the way we're going to do that is by giving them the resources, data, communication, information, legislation that we can to make the changes we need to. So that's my soapbox about VNR. Please go check them out. Please go on the page, and if you find something that we posted that you dislike, well, comment on it, and let's talk about it. Let's debate, because open dialogue is a good and healthy thing. Thank you so much, folks. We'll talk soon.